Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. I'm Rob Adams. Happy to have you along for the Wednesday edition of the show. It's been a while since he's been in studio with us, but with Donald Eng off doing the Monroe Courier, we had to see if Dave Stewart could figure out how to get back to the studio. He made it. No search party necessary. Dave, how are you?
I found my way here okay. Merritt was a little jammed up, but that's par for the course. But
traffic's okay out there otherwise?
Otherwise, it's okay.
Right
now, it is. It's Fairfield County, though. Eventually, it's gonna happen.
It is going to happen. I'm going to do some recapping, but also a lot of lacrosse on this edition of the show with some of the polls coming out, some of the national polls now out. We can spend a few minutes kind of putting a ribbon on that portion of the year in sports.
Yeah, it's obviously the FCAC, as usual, did so great in lacrosse and dominated boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, and we talked about this before. What can you say about Darien High School? I mean, the year they had in terms of winning FCAC championships and how every team top to bottom was competitive, just incredible stuff.
To me, it is one of the more remarkable runs I've ever seen in high school sports. The way that they won, and they lost so little as the season went along in any sport. Go back and look at everything they did at every sport. Remarkable is the word I keep coming up with.
Yeah, and you kind of grown, because they've set the bar so high with lacrosse, you kind of expect the boys and girls lacrosse teams to make runs at it. I think some of the other teams stepping up, though, and doing so well. Boys volleyball, baseball, had a fantastic year for head coach Mike Scott, who was just one of the great guys in the league, and just really deserved what he got there with that championship. And teams like that, and then Tom O'Donnell's boys golf team winning the FCAC championship. I mean, it was deep everywhere, and they had. I think sometimes that winning attitude in a school, and it kind of permeates throughout all the teams, and you see your classmates winning, so you want to win. They expect to win, you expect to win. So I think that's what happens, and it helps itself.
And you kind of highlighted it, the great job that Mike Scott did with the baseball team. Obviously, we knew Jeff Brameyer and the lacrosse team were going to be great. We knew Rob Trafone and the football team were going to be great, going all the way back to the fall. But the baseball story was kind of a fun one to follow. First championship in 35 years, things like that. It was, and they weren't perfect. Look, they won the FCAC in boys volleyball, but Ridgefield stepped up and surprised them. Although it's not a big surprise since Ridgefield is the defending champion, but still, you thought Darien was that good in boys volleyball that they wouldn't get knocked off. You looked at what happened in the volleyball championship on the girls' side back in the fall as well. So yes, there were some surprises. They weren't perfect, but I can't think of a better senior class that I've ever seen.
That could be historic. Actually, I was talking to New Canaan athletic director Jay Egan about it, and that's the word he used, was historic. This hasn't happened before, and New Canaan's had years where they've done very, very well and won 4 or 5 championships, but I think from start to finish, fall, winter, spring, and just the number of teams that, not just the ones that won championships, but the ones that were competitive, made it to the semifinals in different tournaments and made it to the the finals, and it was just. It was just an incredible year, top to bottom.
You can't help but wonder as we look at the boys lacrosse polls, and I was just glancing at them myself, did they get it right? It seems like everybody seems to agree that this McDonough team from Owings Mills, Maryland, that they were the champion team. Every poll I've glanced at has them at number 1. With Darien, I saw Darien, in fact, in the Super 25 among the expert rankings from USA Today, as low as number 7, which to me is just unfathomable. And I think that seems. I'll be honest, that's where the experts kind of outthink themselves. Everybody else seems to put Darien at number 2. Now, McDonough has a loss. They're 18-1. Darien 23-0. There is something to be said for being undefeated. However, there's also something to be said for your strength of schedule.
Yeah, I do think, if you look at some of the teams, New Canaan, Darien, Greenwich, Ridgefield, they all went out of conference, out of state, and played really tough teams. I mean, whether it was in the Battle of the Sound Challenge or New Canaan going to, down to Maryland to play Loyola Blakefield, and it just, they did test themselves against good teams, and I think when a team like New Canaan or a team like Ridgefield or a team like Greenwich plays those other teams, even in a loss, if they play them well, that just makes what Darien did look even better because they were able to handle those three teams. And it's so hard to tell in a national poll because you don't get that head-to-head matchups and stuff, and you could go around in circles trying to say, well, this team beat that team, and team A beat team B, and then team B beat team C. So it's hard to tell. As kind of if I want to be a homer, I would say Darien. I don't know that there's anybody out there that can beat them right now. I'm
looking at McDonough's schedule. McDonough's one loss on the year is to Bullis. They also from Maryland. The Bullis Bulldogs went 21-2 on the year. Losses to Gonzaga out of D.C. and Hill Academy. I believe that's out of Pennsylvania, if I recall correctly. And I look back at McDonough. I mean, it was an 8-7 game. They definitely play, a good strength of schedule. The experts in this case, or the computers, whatever you want to say, they know something. Bullis was the number 5 team, according to Lax Power, with McDonough the number 1 team, Darien, Victor of New York at number 3, and Gonzaga, who I just alluded to, at number 4. I mean, I guess when you look at it that way, you can't help but say, okay, maybe they got it right. I'll give Darien this one thing, though. Right there at number 6 is St. Anthony's, and I'm telling you, one of the great character wins, in fact, I think the best character win for Darien all season was that game in which they knocked off St. Anthony's at Darien High School on a couple of late goals.
Yeah, coming back in the last couple of minutes to win that game. I think that's the big one for them, but I'm looking at their schedule right now. They crushed Yorktown, great program.
Right.
Niskayana, they beat. It was a high scoring game. It was 20-16, which you don't usually see in games like that. But they got that done. Manhasset 11-8. St. Anthony's, like you said, 8-7. And even beating teams like in conference, Greenwich 13-12 in overtime, which was a close one. Ridgefield 11-5, beating New Canaan twice in good games. And those are all great FCAC teams and great out of conference teams or out of state teams. So I don't think there's anything lacking there.
I don't think so either. If you go by the expert rankings from USA Today, and again, I'm taking these with a grain of salt, and I'll readily admit it, they've actually put Haverford Prep School at number 1. I'm just seeing this come across now. 26-0 on the year, out of Pennsylvania, with the Hill Academy from Concord, Ontario, Canada, number 2. Culver 3 from Culver, Indiana, and then a couple of others like IMG Academy from Florida, Gonzaga from Washington, D.C., Victor, Brunswick at number 7, Syos at 8. I mean, I'm not even to Darien yet until you get to 14. No.
That's too low. Haverford School is obviously a storied program, they've been great for years. And Darien in past seasons has played them, had them come here, and then they go out there and. They've had some really good games with that school, but that's a program that you expect to see in the discussion for number 1 every year, Haverford, and I don't see anything lacking in Darien's schedule, their strength of schedule. Yes, they have to play, they do have to play the Brian McMahons, and they have to play the Norwalks, the Wards, Trinity Catholic, things like that. That's part of being in a conference. But you know what? The games they set up outside the conference and their freebies, so to speak, those were great games day in and day out.
And you talk about some of the best lacrosse really in the country right here in Fairfield County. I've got the 2016 U.S. Lacrosse Connecticut All-Americans in front of me, and it's just littered with Fairfield County names and FCAC names certainly. All-Americans such as Ryan Cornell of Darien, of course, the goalie, Peter Dirth from Ridgefield, the midfielder, Mark Ivanchek, of course, who's Player of the Year. What else is new? And, of course, he's going to go play at Penn. Hudson Hamill, another great year for Hamill. Jack Niffen had, to me, the hardest shot I saw all season in lacrosse. There was nothing like it. Chase Levesque, who's going to go on from Ridgefield and play at Boston University. Colin Minikis, who was just, insane with the number of goals he was scoring. Drew Morris from New Canaan, of course. Let's see, I think that's Will Perry from Greenwich, R.J. Romeo of Wilton, and Kyle Smith and David Strupp from New Canaan. Those just the Connecticut All-Americans right off the bat from the FCAC. I'm not even
Yeah.
talking Fairfield County in total.
And Kyle Smith is in a kind of a cool spot. He's going to go to Denver to play, and that's, of course, is Bill Tierney, the legendary coach from Princeton for years and years, and coached when I believe he coached when Chip Buzzio was there. So there's that connection there, and we'll see what Kyle does out there. But there's a lot of great seniors in that group. I mean, Will Perry from Greenwich, one of the best around. I mean, really, he could put that team on his back and carry it, and he's going to go play at North Carolina. A lot of good players out there. Yeah,
a lot of good players indeed. And again, maybe these guys got it right with McDonough, but home cooking certainly. My eye can tell you, I saw plenty of Darien games, and with the exception of the game against St. Anthony's, they pretty much had their way with everybody else.
Yeah, and even usually, I felt like when they played New Canaan played them twice. New Canaan doesn't really back down to them, but New Canaan stayed within striking distance, but you never really felt like Darien was in. Once it got to the second half, you never felt Darien was in danger of losing a game or to New Canaan at that point. So.
It won't happen, but a 1 versus 2, boy, that'd be fun.
That would be fun. That would be pretty cool.
And I have to admit, we would
do
everything in our power to broadcast it.
Yeah, yep, oh yeah.
I think wherever that game was located, we'd be loading up in the RV and going.
That would be a good time, definitely.
It definitely would be. All right, we've got a little more to do here on Nutmeg Sports. We'll bounce a few other things around before we say goodbye for a Wednesday edition. Dave and I are back with Eric Gendron running the controls. We're back right after this on the HAN Network.
It's time to come back to hometown banking, where people are taken into account, not just balances. Where community comes first. A place where there's more than one kind of interest. Where automation will never replace consideration. Where they not only know your name, they know your dog's name too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well. Bank smart. Bank local. Bank well.
For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities. With locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford, Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000. Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. My property taxes on my single-family home were close to $20,000 a year. Now that I've downsized and I'm in a townhome, and because of the condo tax laws, my fees have gone from $20,000 down to about $5,300 with the star exemption. There is no other townhome that compares in the area. This is where I want to be.
I'm Kate Chaplinsky. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN Network. I'm Kate.
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports for a Wednesday on the HAN Network. I'm Rob Adams with Dave Stewart, and I thought some interesting news. You, of course, cover New Canaan day in and day out for the New Canaan Advertiser and the FCAC as well, of course. But interesting news about Danny Melzer leaving Stamford, where he was a Stamford guy, to go over to New Canaan. This taking over a boys basketball program that, let's face it, is not known for its on-court success. Not that it hasn't had its moments, but there are certain programs that aren't known for being a basketball school. New Canaan's one of them. Danny Melzer is an interesting hire to me.
He's a great pickup for New Canaan. I mean, that's he's a proven coach. He's a proven player too, and it'll be interesting to see how that transition goes. I think New Canaan, one thing that happened with New Canaan this year was that under Mike Evans, who stepped down at the end of the year, they, even though the final record didn't show it, their games were much more competitive. They came from, just off the top of my head, they came from down by double digits to tie Trumbull in the fourth quarter. They were leading West Hill for most of the game and then lost in overtime. And you had a lot of games like that where they just couldn't put it over that top. I always think that's just a matter of learning how to win. So to me, the pieces are in place. And with Danny Melzer coming in, if he's able to click right off the bat, which is actually, if you go back a number of years, that's what happened when Jeff Bussey took over at New Canaan. They had a great year. He had the pieces in place. Pieces are there with Tyler Sweeney and a host of others there. And we'll see if, I think it's a good setup for him to come in and start to build something.
All right, so you had Bussey's bomb squad. Can Melzer build a bomb squad?
Bussey's bomb squad is still around.
No.
That's one of Jeff Bussey's lasting legacies, I guess, at the high school. And they still have T-shirts, Bussey's bomb squad, and it's great. And Jeff, Jeff's just a great guy.
Yeah.
And he did a remarkable job at New Canaan with the boys basketball team, because it is hard in schools like that where there's so much focus on football and hockey and lacrosse to build a program when you're really up against it. You're playing a lot of the city schools have great programs. You've got a couple of private schools in there that are, that really kind of the cards are stacked against you to start right off the bat. So building something is difficult, and we'll see if Danny Melzer can do it. It's had to be a tough decision for him to leave Stanford, though.
As we said earlier in the week, he played for Jim Moriarty.
Mm-hmm.
He was an assistant coach for him. He stayed here in Connecticut and played his college basketball as well. So he is very much based in this area, and now was building what was becoming a really good program, and it can still be a good program at Stanford High. And a bit of a student presence as well in the fans section. We saw that from the couple of games we had here on the HAN Network over at Stanford High School. So can he now build a culture over at New Canaan, and how does he do it?
I think the initial push with the people we were talking about, Tyler Sweeney, you've Jackson Savala, who's a sophomore, who was great. You got the Cravatos out there, good athletes. Timmy Russo is coming back next year; he'll be a senior. So they've got some veterans and they've got some very good players, and it remains. You want to see the results on the court, but they were so close. They were agonizingly close this year to being a very good team and being a competitive team. So. And
I'm smiling because I just glanced down at my messages. Danny Melzer just shot me a message saying he's leaving for vacation right now. So he said, "Can we connect next week?" So we'll get him next week.
We'll get him next week. But yeah, it'll be. I think it's a great pickup for New Canaan High School. He's gonna have a full-time PE job in the New Canaan public school system. I'm not clear on whether he's going to be at New Canaan High School but it's great to have a coach that's actually in the school system too, because then he can meet with the kids and talk to the kids, and that can really help you. Sometimes you pick up a player or two who can really help you down the line. You
don't quite realize how important it is to have someone in the building until they're not in the building. And I've seen it work.
Exactly.
I mean, Rich Albanese didn't teach at Greenwich High School and obviously built a legendary continued a legendary football program at Greenwich High School, but he didn't teach in there.
Yes.
So sometimes, there are many times it works. But, as you said, you run that chance of, if he's in the building, of saying, "Hey, Mr. Melzer, how are you? Hey, why aren't you coming out for the basketball team?" You build the relationship that way.
I also it helps with the transition, too. The kids get to see him more often. These kids who are, obviously there's going to be contact between him and the basketball players before basketball season, but they're going to see him every day. They're going to see him at the school. They're going to, they're going to get more familiar with him, so that when you jump into basketball season, it's not this completely new thing. You're going to know what his personality's like and what direction the program's going in. But it's exciting. It's exciting whenever a new coach comes in. There's that transition time, and you just wonder, because all of a sudden now, what's the ceiling? What does the ceiling become? What is this guy able to do?
And of course, we're not tossing the ball up for 6 months. But as I stand here in June, I say to myself, who's West Hill have coming back as the two-time defending champion? Can Norwalk kind of rebuild again? They're a great coach. what about Buddy Bray and Trumbull? What will Greenwich be? What's going on in the conference? Who are the big teams going to be as we look into 2016-17? Hard to say in June, but fun to spend a moment thinking about it.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I always think it's wide open every year, and basketball season's such that if you get a couple of good wins early on, all of a sudden now you start to feel good about yourself, and if you have the talent, which they do, anything can happen.
I mean, that's it. Talent wins when all is said and done.
That's it. And I could see in their team this year in that they had a few of those games where they could have won and they lost early on, and you could tell that the air goes out of the balloon, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, that hurts. It hurts, and I think there was a frustration there last year, and I think that you could see that with from Mike Evans, because he wanted so bad for those kids to win and see what it's like, because ultimately for a coach, that's what proves that your system, that what you've been teaching the kids is correct.
And where does Stanford go?
Yeah, that's big shoes to fill now. But that's a good program. They've got a lot of kids there who are good players and a lot of kids who want to play basketball. I think they'll land on their feet. We'll see who they go with.
Hard to say. I mean, there will be some chips will fall, some dominoes and all that stuff, and the same will go for hockey. I mean, you and I both hear enough things, nothing confirmed, but we hear rumblings here and there, so we'll see what goes on. I think football, we're pretty set on the football and the fall scene.
Yes.
But I don't know about winter at this point.
Well, I would think that in the case of Stanford, they want to get everything settled by the time school starts in September. I think the summer, you'd like to get it taken care of over the summer. Sooner is better than later. So that just, because everything's going to start settling in, you're back in school, you're getting things going again. I think they'd want to get it done by August and be set for the fall.
Before we take a break, just staying on that topic very quickly, we haven't touched on it on this show, but speaking of Stanford, Jamar Green was at one point no longer the football coach. Now he's back as the football coach. I know that was a kind of a unique situation going on there as well. So I like Jamar. I'm glad he's back with the program, but you wonder how awkward that's going to be, And at the end of the day, he's got to coach and the kids have got to play. That's what it comes down to, regardless of whatever's going on with the authorities or however you want to phrase it at Stanford High School.
Yeah, and they had some good players. We saw them, I believe, against Danbury early on, and they have some good players in place, and just seemed like they just couldn't turn that corner, that when things started going wrong, it just spiraled downward. And, it is an interesting situation, though. He's out and he's back. You hope that doesn't hurt things in terms of like a respect thing or the feeling the kids might get towards the coach. Like, is the coach still on thin ice, or is he in solid? Is he in solid now? But we'll see. I thought that he did a decent job there, and that the kids, especially 2 seasons ago, they started feeling like they could win, and they started getting a little bit of a swagger about them. And just in the middle of that season, I think they lost a couple of games, and they lost that swagger, and they need to get that back. And I think if they're able to, just like I said with New Canaan, for New Canaan basketball, the pieces are in place for them to possibly turn that corner.
Another break. We come back and put a ribbon on a Wednesday edition of Nutmeg Sports. We're back right after this on the HAN Network. Keep your future star active and happy this summer at Future Stars Sports Academy camps and clinics. The Academy is offering sessions throughout Fairfield County. Sign up for a week of basketball, cheerleading, football, or a multi-sports camp. At Future Stars Academy, children learn the fundamentals while under the supervision of qualified coaches. And what sets the Academy apart is its special Lessons of Life sessions, teaching values and focusing on building self-esteem, friendships, and honesty. Located at Sports Center Connecticut in Shelton and in Sports in Trumbull. Register online at FutureStarsSportsAcademy.com.
Warm weather, light breezes, boats are in the water. There's no better place to celebrate summer than the Dock Shop. Whether in Darien at 51 Tokenique Road or Westport at 609 Riverside Avenue, the Dock Shop is where you'll find everything you need to kick off summer. From the latest summer apparel to the newest fishing tackle, the Dock Shop will help you get the most out of your next beach day or harbor cruise. At the Dock Shop, you'll find a wonderful selection of items made in the USA and right here in New England, all with a distinct nautical flair. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the coastal lifestyle, this is a unique place to shop. DockShop.com.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN Network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
Back for our final segment on Nutmeg Sports on a Wednesday edition. Rob Adams along with Dave Stewart, Eric Gendron directing. Donald Eng actually poked his nose in to say hello and said, "That's it, I'm out of here, I'm going back to Monroe." Kind of a cloudy day outside as we get ready to say goodbye, but we also say goodbye to the entire school year at this point. I mean, it really is done now.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like you get to this point, and I feel like, okay, you need a break, but it's also like, okay, what do I do now? You know, because you end up as a sports writer, you do end up covering a lot of Legion stuff. You know, there's a lot going on during the summer, but it's all kind of disjointed. There's not that same organization and direction that you get from the fall season, but the fall, winter, spring seasons.
And I'm looking at the Legion, you know, specifically I'm looking at Zone 4, Legion Baseball, and Stanford is playing great baseball, 11-1 on the year. Greenwich coming off that 2 of 3 that they beat Trumbull, they're 10-1. Trumbull now at 11-2. Darien, New Canaan as the combined team, pretty good at 9-2, but beyond that, one team is absolutely fascinating me, and that's Ridgefield at 0-12. Again, I don't have the roster in front of me. I'm just intrigued by it, Dave. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's you know, they just haven't been playing well, and you know, it is. You would think Ridgefield would be able to put a good team together in Legion. Legion's kind of one of those things, though, that it's kind of hard to put a finger on sometimes, because you get some teams that are really organized and really, you know, have a direction they want to go in, and other teams where it's kind of like, okay, who do we have today and what kind of lineup can we put together? And I feel like some of the time that some of these teams almost wait and see what happens, like the first dozen or so games. And if they're going somewhere, then they all start showing up all the time and playing. But, you know, it's you don't always get the best players on it from that town on every team.
Not always, although I'm noticing that Greenwich has Connor Langen, for instance. Trumbull has Andrew Loico on it, and Dustin Cicada, and some of the players we've seen from the Trumbull High team. You know, so again, I'm not looking at the rosters, but when I look at these, what you're saying is true. The record doesn't necessarily have a direct correlation to the high school team, where Ridgefield High School team had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
So
and they're tournament. They were tournament teams, and they were in both tournaments, and then, you know, so they were solid. You look at Darien. They've got the Darien New Canaan team. They're weighted more for Darien right now. But you've got guys like Richard Brereton and Andrew Winch, the pitchers out there. You got Jack Havard from New Canaan. All three of them are very good pitchers, and you know, so that they've got a solid team too. But Darien's had a few carryovers from their FCAC championship team, so I'm sure that helps in starting 9-2.
Yeah, it can't hurt for sure. So, how do you kind of, you know, get yourself beyond that? What else will you cover in the summer? You know, we know the Grip It and Rip It is coming up, for instance. But that's a day. You know, you get a couple of stories out of that maybe. What else kind of carries you through this month, July and into August?
You know, there's some summer lacrosse that goes on, but again, that's a little disjointed. There's Cal Ripken baseball. You get to see a lot of the younger kids. Actually, with some of the 10-year-old and 11-year-old teams, that's where I first saw guys like Alex LaPolice and Zach. There was a team with Alex LaPolice and Zach Smith, or Zach Allen, who were both kind of oversized, I should say, for for their age at 10 years old. So imagine how those two guys coming at you pitching, and so that can be kind of fun. You kind of see where the future of teams, what the future of teams are going to be like. I also do some coverage of the Fairfield County Swim League, which is all the clubs are playing each other, and it's kind of a little more laid back. But what's nice about that is, especially for the girls' sport, you do get a lot of the FCAC kids who are kind of tuning up through late July and early August for the fall FCAC season. So, you'll see kids from Wilton, you'll see kids from, the Greenwich team, the New Canaan team, the Darien team, Staples, who are very good swimmers. There's some excellent older swimmers in that league.
And if you're missing high school football, well, you've got the Super 100 Connecticut All-Star game this weekend at Rentschler Field too.
That's right. And there's always something for football during the summer. If you're not getting into camps or clinics or just seeing what teams have, practices will start before you know it. And of course, the big thing for us will be that Grip It and Rip It tournament, which I believe is the 8th and 9th of July at Dunning Field. And always, I believe they have a team from Canada that's coming down again.
That's kind of cool.
Which is awesome stuff. So that's always interesting.
Will they play Canadian League? No, they won't play that. So I'm just kidding. I saw Joe Della Vecchia of St. Joseph, in fact, will be one of the coaches in that Super 100. So that's kind of cool.
That's
local
neat too.
Angle to it. So, there's still that. And again, you can start really ripping into the schedules and going, okay, I like this game, I like that game. Kind of getting yourself set. And then before you know it, they're practicing, their scrimmages, and then it's game number 1.
That's it, and we look forward to it, and it'll be interesting to see. We were talking about Darien earlier, but with football, it'll be interesting to see how Darien, comes back. They graduated a lot. They should. I just feel like New Canaan and Darien were so far ahead of everybody else this year. Does Darien fall back with the graduations? Do they fall back? But if they were so far ahead, are they still better than just about everybody else? I mean, the only team that really could compete with them in the FCAC was New Canaan. And the same thing goes for New Canaan. The only team that compete with them was Darien.
Again, the culture. We talk about the culture. Has a legacy been built there where kids are now going to be playing in the feeder programs and at the lower levels? And are they building up, basically a reservoir of great athletes where the schools such as, a Greenwich, a Staples, just football off the top of my head, these teams were good every single year building, and then would be joined on occasion by like a Bridgeport Central. A Trumbull on occasion would jump in. Trumbull seems to almost be like a once every 2-3 years they get really
exactly,
great.
Exactly.
And then they kind of drop a little bit. So, is Darien going to be that factory of athletes? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's, Darien and New Canaan kind of have that year in and year out thing going right now where they just are able to keep the ball rolling. Greenwich is always a team that's dangerous because of the number of kids they have. There's so much talent there, and I feel like Johnny's second year, you're going to see a little bit more of his influence out there, and Johnny Marinelli, of course, we're talking about, but so that'll be an interesting, and he gets to play Darien, and he gets to play New Canaan. That could be a good thing or a bad thing for Greenwich, but he'll get a chance to prove himself there, or at least the whole Greenwich team will. And then there's always teams like Ridgefield, Staples. You can never count those teams out. They could jump up and bite you at any time. And,
again, that's a couple of months from now, but yeah, just from a Greenwich perspective, they have, as you said, Darien, New Canaan, Ridgefield, and Staples. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy schedule.
Not an easy schedule at all.
You earn your way into the playoffs if you make it off of that.
Yeah. And I know New Canaan, I believe they start at Trinity Catholic, which will be interesting. It's a day game Saturday. Their first
field,
and then the week after they have Ridgefield at Dunning Field, the home opener.
Right.
So that's another. I don't. New Canaan blew out Ridgefield to start the season last year. I don't foresee that happening again. I think Ridgefield's going to be a strong team this year.
I do too.
And, I think New Canaan obviously goes in as the favorite in that game, but I don't think it's going to be I can't remember what the score was, but it was a blowout. It was done at halftime.
Yeah.
The opener this year.
See you next week.
I'll be here.
Sounds good. Thanks to Eric Gendron. That'll do it for Nutmeg Sports for this week. I'm back with Coffee Break tomorrow. I'll try to keep the shows straight. We'll see if we can get through that. But back with Coffee Break tomorrow. I'll be in for Kate Chaplinski. Of course, you've got all the great programming tomorrow as well, Yankee Fisherman and Arts and Leisure. For Dave Stewart, I'm Rob Adams. Enjoy your afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow for Coffee Break. But thanks for watching Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.